Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy, presenting my 200th review of a film, which is of AKIRA. This was released in Japan in the year 1988 and was directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, who also was the creator of the manga of the same name. Ever since I began this run of multimedia reviews, I've always wanted to review the film AKIRA at some point, given how much I have enjoyed this film since my first viewing. My original plan was to review the film AKIRA back in 2018 to commemorate its 30th anniversary, but that original plan did not fall through. So my plan B was to review the film AKIRA in 2019 as the film was set in 2019. But my plan B did not come through. And with the Olympics being in Tokyo and originally meant to be held in 2020, I figured now is the proper time to talk about the film AKIRA. One of the works that Katsuhiro Otomo was inspired by that has great significance to his manga magnum opus AKIRA was the series Tetsujin 28 Go, which is known in the United States as Gigantor, because Tetsujin 28 Go translated into English is Iron Man number 28. Because it was brought into the United States sometime after Marvel Comics began their run of Iron Man comics, it was renamed to Gigantor, likely to avoid getting sued by Marvel Comics. The main protagonist of Tetsujin 28 Go is Shotaro. Kaneda's first name is also Shotaro. There's also Akira himself, who is designated as number 28. I have not experienced Tetsujin 28 Go in any form, but I am certain that the two works have big differences. When production began for the anime film adaptation of AKIRA, Katsuhiro Otomo was writing and illustrating the manga of the same name. There were hurdles in the writing process of the anime film adaptation. He accepted that it would have a different flow from the manga, which he did not have its ending written. He started by writing the end of the film, and around this time, according to the interview by Katsuhiro Otomo, was that he wanted to do something more technical. One of the key technical factors in production was pre-scoring, which I will talk about momentarily. One thing that should be kept in mind is that Katsuhiro Otomo made the anime film adaptation of AKIRA to be a visual work. AKIRA is known for its fluid animation with over 160,000 animation cells used in the film. There was also some CGI used, notably during scenes that showed Dr. Onishi's pattern indicator. Other uses of CGI were done to achieve some visual effects. AKIRA was also a very expensive anime film at the time, even more expensive than the production costs of the Studio Ghibli film Castle in the Sky. The production cost was 700 million yen, which is equivalent to what was then 5.5 million US dollars. Even though the production cost of AKIRA was the most expensive anime film at the time, that achievement was surpassed by the Studio Ghibli film Kiki's Delivery Service, as its production budget was 800 million yen. The music was done by a group called Geino Yamashiro Gumi, who are led by Shoji Yamashiro. The music direction had to retain sensibilities of styles of 1988, but had to give the music a distinct sound that it would fit in the time period that the film was set in, which was 2019. The film's score was written before animation production was made. This direction was made so the visuals could match the music. Indonesian instruments were notably used in the film AKIRA. The reason for this was to give the film a sound of the future at the time of the film's production. What was also implemented in the music was Japanese no music. What also was a key factor of AKIRA's music was the human voice. Another thing worth noting is that a synthesizer was used during the making of the score of AKIRA. One aspect that is greatly noted was that AKIRA recorded the dialogue before animation was made, although in AKIRA's case, animatics were used to assist the cast members. The common practice of an anime production was that animation was made before dialogue gets recorded. AKIRA was also greatly noted for the animation method of matching lip movements to the dialogue. For an anime production, this feat was a first, and also a rare sight in anime, as this method has not been done much since AKIRA's release. In 1989, Streamline Pictures released AKIRA in the United States for a limited time, and did provide an English dub that is known today as the Streamline dub. But it would be accurate to simply call it the original English dub. This dub was made available on home video releases on VHS and Laserdisc back in the 90s, and later in Funimation's 25th anniversary release on DVD and Blu-ray. The people responsible for the original English dub were Wally Burr and Sheldon Rennan. I see that AKIRA was the only credit that Sheldon Rennan has as ADR director, but as for the late Wally Burr, he was known for being the ADR director of the original Transformers cartoon, plus the Transformers animated film. AKIRA did receive another English dub in 2001, when Pioneer bought the licensing, and this second English dub is often nicknamed the Pioneer dub, but it also goes by the name the Animes dub, since Animes was the company who were responsible for the dubbing of AKIRA's second English dub. The ADR director responsible for the redubbing of Katsuhiro Otomo's iconic anime film was the late Kevin Seymour, who was the founder of Animes, who had some of the best English dubs out there. It is such a shame Animes became defunct after the passing of Kevin Seymour. And now I shall begin going in depth with this film. Given how iconic AKIRA is, I just have to. AKIRA begins with Tokyo being destroyed by a massive explosion, and all you hear is wind, then silence, and then wind again, as we see the geographical view of Neo-Tokyo. And then those drum beats. And of course, the title of the film in big red letters. This first minute is ominous and really sets the mood for what the viewer is about to experience. We then focus on the Harukiya bar, where we are introduced to one of the main characters, Kaneda. We also get a brief glimpse of the civil unrest in Neo-Tokyo, which will carry on throughout the film. We are also introduced to Yamagata, who informs Kaneda that the clowns are herded out on Route 5. He and Kaneda head out the bar.
How about buying something for once? This ain't a hangout for damn street gangs.
Yeah, right. Drink your dog piss?
Yamagata is such a punk, and I love his attitude. Of course, given the tone of the film. Then we are introduced to another main character, Tetsuo, as he is checking out Kaneda's bike and is quite impressed by the mechanical specs it has. Kaneda's bike is definitely an iconic motorcycle, not only in the medium of anime, but also in the medium of film. That bike is so rad! And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thinking, I wish I could ride on a motorcycle like that. The first 10 to 15 minutes definitely get talked about by those who have seen the film. Why is that? Because the animation is fucking incredible! 1988 was quite a year for anime. Studio Ghibli released what is to this day Isao Takahata's masterpiece, Grave of the Fireflies, as well as what is now the much-beloved Miyazaki film, My Neighbor Totoro. 1988 also saw the beginning of the longest OVA series ever made, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. 1988 was also a groundbreaking year in animation. AKIRA was not the only animated film with impressive animation. There was also Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the West, with its feat of blending animation with live action. AKIRA, as I stated before, was known for having over 160,000 animation cells used for the film's production. This bike chase and bike fight sequence is one of several moments where the insanely high amount of animation cells being used in AKIRA truly shows. Ah yes, the Kaneda slide. These 3 seconds have been homaged, and clearly these are tributes by animators who must have been fans of AKIRA. Animation this amazing must be seen by any animator. In the next scene, we see a man and a boy on the run. They end up being spotted, and a crowd of people notice that the man is bleeding quite badly. We are then introduced to Kei, who is affiliated with the resistance group. Also in that same group is Ryu. The man and the boy attempt to flee, and the man gets shot and tells the boy to run away before the police capture him. At this point, we do get a good look at the boy, who looks peculiar compared to everyone else. The man aims his gun at the police officers, and he gets brutally wasted, and the boy screams in horror after seeing the man get killed. And there are explosions. Kei stares at the boy, and then he vanishes. We then see a character who, much like the boy, looks quite peculiar. And another character who I can see is reporting for duty. Colonel Shikishima is a badass! We see more bike chasing, and we also see the riots up close. Well, AKIRA sure sounds close to home, since the film was set in 2019, in which the Hong Kong protest began that year, and is still going to this day as of this recording. Also, as I am releasing this review, it is August, which is a few months after the George Floyd protests began. AKIRA sure aged well. Tetsuo chases a biker who crashes into debris on the road, and Tetsuo whacks him and suddenly encounters the mysterious boy. And suddenly there's an explosion. Kaneda and the rest of the biker gang find Tetsuo laying on the floor. Kaneda sees the mysterious boy, and then the military arrive, and not only do they take the mysterious boy back, they also take Tetsuo. What a coincidence that a film in 1988 mentions the Olympics, and they're being scheduled to be held at Neo Tokyo in the year 2020. Because in real life, the 2020 Olympics were scheduled to be held at Tokyo. There is also that graffiti underneath the sign that says, "Cut it off." AKIRA sure aged well. Kaneda and his biker gang get interrogated, and they end up being free to leave. And Kaneda sees Kei, and she ends up being free to leave as well. Kaneda certainly has his eyes on Kei.
I suppose I owe you one. Thank you very much,
I'm Kaneda. It's nice
See you
to...
around, Kaneda.
What? Swiggity sweetie.
I am the guy that saved you back there. You can at least tell me your name, you cold bitch!
We then see Tetsuo getting tested, and we also learn that he is developing psychic powers after coming in contact with the mysterious boy. As for Kaneda, we see him and his biker gang at a vocational school where they end up getting disciplined.
Discipline! 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 Dismissed!
In the next scene, we see that Tetsuo escaped the hospital. Also around this time, the viewer is introduced to Tetsuo's girlfriend, Kaori. While she was hanging around the groupies of Kaneda's biker gang, she stands out for being timid unlike the other girls. While this moment is quite short, I do like how they show Tetsuo's good side before all the chaos happens. This moment between Tetsuo and Kaori is sweet.
We'll run away.
Where would we go to?
I don't know. Someplace far away.
We go back to Kaneda and his buddies at the vocational school, and Kai notices someone on Kaneda's bike, and Kaneda sees that Tetsuo is the one that is stealing Kaneda's bike. While Tetsuo and Kaori go on their little joyride, the clowns spot them and go after them. Kaneda's bike stops moving due to mechanical specs that were customized to Kaneda's preferences that Tetsuo should have kept in mind until he realized too late. The clowns catch up to Tetsuo and Kaori. One of them hits Kaori, and the clowns wanted to get payback for the other night when Kaneda and his biker gang fought the clowns. Kaneda and his buddies catch up, and the clowns escape, except for one of them who gets kicked by Kaneda. Kaneda has balls! Tetsuo beats the shit out of the clown that Kaneda kicked, so much that if he were to hit him more, he would kill him. Kaneda and Tetsuo have an argument, and this scene right here addresses Tetsuo's inferiority complex. He also starts having an excruciating headache and begins hallucinating. He also gets taken back to the hospital. Later that night, those groupies of Kaneda's biker gang end up ditching them, and then an explosion goes off nearby from a terrorist bombing. Kaneda spots Kei running alongside Ryu, and he goes after her. Ryu and Kei split up as they are on the run. Good call! Kei gets spotted by military officers. Kaneda manages to save Kei. The other officer points the gun at Kaneda and fires it at Kei, and he gets shot in the face by Kei as she fires back. Damn! Kaneda and Kei then run away from the sewer. We then see Tetsuo get tested again, but this time we get a glimpse of Tetsuo's past mixed in with a nightmare. Next, we see another child introduced who looks much like the two mysterious boys we have seen prior. Her name's Kyoko. Okay, it's time that I explained who these children are. They are espers. They also go by the term the numbers. The first esper we saw is Takashi. As for the disabled esper, that's Masaru. Kei goes back to the hideout alongside Kaneda, and she reunites with her resistance group. And they ask the identity of Kaneda, and they lock him up in an empty room. Kei and the resistance group discuss the laboratory and its new subject, which happens to be Tetsuo. And we also learn that this group tried to abduct number 26, who is Takashi. They hear a sound coming from the vent, and it's Kaneda who hit his head, and they drag him out of the vent and put him at gunpoint. Kaneda explains that this new test subject is a friend of his. Around this point in the film, we are introduced to Nezu, who, for an old man, is quite the pipsqueak. He also has those buck teeth. This is quite deliberate given that Nezu is Japanese for rat. We also see a religious cult that is devoted to Akira and his return. I do bring this up because the one who is preaching about Akira's return is Lady Miyako. She had a much larger role in the AKIRA manga, as she was a key character during the plot's progression.
Don't you understand? Unless an AKIRA disaster actually happens, don't you people understand anything?
Has anyone ever seen this number 26 AKIRA?
That's not his
You're
number.
wrong! He was number 25! Idiot!
Break it up.
Ah, political bickering, how typical. Akira sure aged well. We then see Tetsuo's headache is clearly getting worse, and we see the first use of his psychic abilities. He also begins to see a stuffed bear, a stuffed bunny, and a toy car. This scene right here might make someone say, "What the fuck?" But I love the lighting and eeriness in this scene. I also have picked up on the connections between the three espers and what they project as. Takashi projects a form of a teddy bear with a snake arm, and what we have noticed thus far is that he appears to be quite the softy, except for when he's threatened or under a great amount of pressure or even experiencing something traumatizing. Kyoko projects herself as a stuffed bunny, and she trips, and she's by far the most fragile of the three. As for Masaru, he projects a toy car. Because he uses a floating wheelchair, clearly due to a disability he has. Tetsuo breaks out of his room, and his powers are starting to awaken. Oh shit. We then see the Resistance, which Kaida is now involved with, given the information he gave to the Resistance about his connection with Tetsuo, and they end up being spotted. This, of course, leads into another action scene, and who would have thought that an action scene in a sewer would be exciting? It's simple. Akira has a post-apocalyptic setting in it, and seeing as how society as depicted in the film is at unrest, a fight in the sewers could not be any shittier than the chaos that came before and since this action scene. We go back to Tetsuo, who is wreaking destruction, and as awesome as scenes involving Tetsuo will be for the rest of the film, I do love how Katsuhiro Otomo directed this scene, as well as other scenes later on, to instill fear towards the audience to give the impression that Tetsuo is extremely dangerous. Tetsuo reaches the nursery, and there's a mural of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Interesting. Takashi and Masaru project themselves as a stuffed teddy bear, and good lord! That stuffed teddy bear projection looks creepier than the previous scene! Takashi and Masaru project themselves as a stuffed teddy bear and toy car, and Tetsuo manages to easily break their forms with his psychic powers. Out of all the espers, Masaru doesn't go down without a fight, and he sure is not one to underestimate. We go back to Kaneda as he and Kei are on their way to the laboratory. However, Kei is behaving differently as Kyoko is telepathically possessing Kei. Shortly after, Tetsuo arrives to see the three espers together, and Tetsuo, Takashi, and Masaru clash by using psychic powers against each other. Dr. Onishi and Colonel Shikishima arrive, and they try to calm Tetsuo down, and the espers warn Tetsuo not to use his psychic powers for destruction, or else there would be consequences. Tetsuo picks up what Kyoko is saying behind the glass, and Tetsuo asks where Akira is. Tetsuo is also warned that if Akira were to be awakened, there is nothing that can stop Akira. Tetsuo starts tearing up the nursery. Kaneda and Kei make it to the nursery, and while Kaneda attempts to help Tetsuo escape, soldiers arrive and Tetsuo annihilates them.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were there. There, do you see, Kaneda? I won't be needing you to come to the rescue ever again, okay?
Tetsuo clearly has gone mad. Now, while he is unstable and arrogant at this point in the film's plot, It does feel organic since we have already seen a display of Tetsuo's inferiority complex. Tetsuo manages to probe Kyoko's mind in regards to the whereabouts of AKIRA underneath the Olympic Stadium. As Tetsuo escapes, Kei notices Kyoko and realizes that she was the one who possessed Kei telepathically. And Colonel Shikishima and his men are stopped by a representative of the Supreme Executive Council and his men, as he gives the notice that Colonel Shikishima is stripped of his command and rank and placed under arrest. Colonel Shikishima, in his badassery, doesn't put up with this bullshit.
No, wait, hold on, no!
Enough! Open your eyes and look at the big picture. You're all puppets of corrupt politicians and capitalists. Don't you understand? It's utterly pointless to fight each other.
Well, what do we have here? Social commentary that actually feels organic given what is presented in AKIRA, unlike the propaganda that I am noticing throughout modern entertainment these days. Now, even though the media is not addressed in this scene, I salute to Colonel Shikishima's manliness. Oh, AKIRA sure aged well. Colonel Shikishima heads to the Olympic Stadium to try to stop Tetsuo from awakening AKIRA. We see the Harukiya bar again, and we see that Tetsuo came into the bar, and he demands the bartender to give him capsules, and... I know what's coming, and... Damn it! Yamagata and Kai head to the bar as well, and they come in, and it's dark. The lighting in this film is something worth appreciating because the direction in lighting or lack of lighting really complements certain tones that a number of scenes are being handled. Once again, with the way that Katsuhiro Otomo directed this film and how certain scenes are handled to instill fear that Tetsuo is extremely dangerous, this scene is no exception, especially with Tetsuo sitting on a mountain of furniture, looking down at Yamagata and Kai after killing the bartender. And this is great framing given that Yamagata and Kai have no psychic powers, but Tetsuo does. Sadly, Yamagata is killed by Tetsuo. Good night, sweet prince of biker punks, and may all the biker angels rev up your engines and ride with you up in the Great Highway. We then go back to Kaneda and Kei, and they talk about what AKIRA is. There certainly is a mystery surrounding AKIRA, and all we know is that AKIRA is underneath the Olympic Stadium inside a cryogenic chamber. There is also the number 28 on that chamber. And the Espers seem to know AKIRA a great deal, as greatly implied. And they also have numbers tattooed on them. Kei does talk about energy and evolution, and this clearly is alluding to not only Tetsuo's powers, but Akira's as well. We also see that Kyoko possesses Kei once again. Their cell door unlocks, and Kaneda and Kei escape from prison. Kaneda and Kei are on the run in the streets, and Kai calls out to Kaneda, and he informs them that Yamagata is dead, and he recounts what happened back in Harukiya Bar. Kaneda then recalls how long he has been a friend of Tetsuo since they were children, and what they have experienced together. Shortly after, Kaneda sends Yamagata's bike to the wall and destroys it so that Yamagata can have his bike back. Takashi appears before Kei and takes her with him. Kei sure is quite the target of possession, but at least there is a purpose behind it. Kyoko communicates with Kaneda and Kai telepathically to explain why the Espers want Kei, and she also informs them about Akira's power residing in everyone, and when that power is awakened, it is up to oneself to choose how to use it. Vague as this sounds, I actually thought about what Kyoko said here, and here is my interpretation to what she is talking about. AKIRA was the cause of World War III, as stated in a short paragraph in the beginning of the film. AKIRA is whom politicians bicker about. The project concerning AKIRA is top secret. AKIRA is seen as a being that has divine power, which is why there is a cult that awaits the return of AKIRA. AKIRA's powers is something that Tetsuo wants to learn more about so he can gain more power. My best guess to what Kyoko said about AKIRA's power residing in everyone is that AKIRA has an effect on everything. We see Nezu at his estate as the military break through the main gate, and he stuffs a bunch of money in his briefcase. Also in this very scene, we see Ryu again, who is badly injured after the fight in the sewer. Nezu suspects that Ryu sold him out, and he shoots Ryu. Damn! Another cool character in the film. We now see downtown Neo Tokyo and a helicopter crashes. Then... this is when the film starts showing a great amount of destruction. And this film's third act is pure chaos. But on the other hand, the rest of the film is amazing. Nezu tries to escape, but he is having a heart attack, which he does eventually succumb to. Ryu was following him, and he too dies after being shot by Nezu not too long ago. Another cool character ends up dead. At least Kaneda's still alive. Speaking of Kaneda, he decides to go to Tetsuo and confront him because he is certain that is what Tetsuo would want. We then see the military and Tetsuo on the bridge, and Tetsuo is followed by the cult of AKIRA, as they have become aware of Tetsuo's power. The military shoots and they manage to hit one of the cultists, which causes Tetsuo to use his power on the bridge to wipe out the soldiers. The cultists get caught in the destruction. Colonel Shikishima and his men head towards the Olympic Stadium, which is where Tetsuo is heading to. Tetsuo does go underneath the Olympic Stadium, and just as he reaches Akira's cryogenic chamber, Kei, telepathically possessed by Kyoko, is there to put a stop to Tetsuo. For a film in 1988, there is a female Esper, who is the most fragile of the three Espers, teaming up with Kei to open a can of PK whoop-ass on Tetsuo. Isn't it great that AKIRA has female characters that actually have purpose and not a single one feels forced? There are no Mary Sues in AKIRA. And also, none of the female characters are scaled up at the expense of a male character getting scaled down. And that shit irritates me with modern entertainment these days. Kei is part of a resistance group, and while she is with Kaneda, she doesn't immediately have the hots for him, and she also doesn't rely on him during her arc. Kyoko, as I've already explained, is one of the three Espers, and she is the most fragile. She is also wise and very caring. She does rely on others due to her health, but the audience can understand that her physical weakness and her own particular strengths balance out her character. Kaori, on the other hand, is timid, and seeing as she is Tetsuo's girlfriend, it's no wonder why audiences see her being attached to Tetsuo. Kaori in the manga is a much different case, as she is a sex slave for Tetsuo.
Oh my.
I wasn't kidding when I said that this film's third act is chaotic, yet it's amazing to look at with how fucking phenomenal the animation is from beginning to end. And this scene here is what I consider to be a prime example. I could watch this scene over and over again to marvel at the impressive display of animation that AKIRA has. Tetsuo does discover the secret of AKIRA, and that within the cryogenic chamber are canisters that contain Akira's remains. As Tetsuo learns the truth about Akira, he goes mad and lashes out at Colonel Shikishima. Not too long later, Kaneda appears before Tetsuo, and they have a little manly talk. Here we have what is a staple in anime. Name yelling.
Kaneda!
That's Mr. Kaneda to you, punk!
There will be more name yelling later. Tetsuo and Kaneda fight, and I gotta say, the use of the song Battle with the Clowns here was a bit of an odd choice during this fight scene, given that it was used earlier when Kaneda's biker gang fought the clowns a few times. Although in the manga, Tetsuo actually does become leader of the clown biker gang. Now, had that been part of the film's plot, the use of the song Battle with the Clowns actually would have been somewhat fitting. Kaneda manages to get a clean shot, but his battery runs out on him. And as Tetsuo looks down on him, a light comes down at Tetsuo, which is coming from SOL, which is an acronym for Satellite Orbital Laser. Tetsuo loses an arm due to the volley from SOL, and as he screams in pain, Kaneda attempts to stone Tetsuo with a big-ass rock, and SOL fires another volley. While Kaneda is in the way of SOL's target, Tetsuo uses his psychic power to shield Kaneda from the volley, and Tetsuo goes up into space to destroy SOL. As SOL crashes down to Earth, Tetsuo forges a mechanical arm to replace the one he lost. Colonel Shikishima speaks with Dr. Onishi, and he discovers Tetsuo's massive pattern displayed on Dr. Onishi's pattern indicator. Dr. Onishi says that he could not throw away such a magnificent subject, as Colonel Shikishima is really pissed. I admire the honesty in AKIRA in displaying that science too can play a part in any form of corruption. Kai and Kei regroup with Kaneda as they recharge their batteries on their bikes, which is a pretty humorous scene. It's also a great way to show the calm before the storm. Even though the chaos has already begun, there is another storm brewing, and, well, how should I put this? The tagline of this film did not lie. It is now nighttime, and this is the scene in which the climax begins. The stage of the climax is in Neo-Tokyo's Olympic Stadium. We see Kaori wandering around, and she hears Tetsuo screaming as he is in agonizing pain. His mechanical arm begins to mutate, and Colonel Shikishima arrives and talks with Tetsuo as he pleads him to go back to the lab to get treated or else he could die. Tetsuo retaliates and pushes Colonel Shikishima away. Tetsuo approaches Kaori as his mechanical arm continues to mutate, and he pleads her to get him medicine. Colonel Shikishima shoots Tetsuo, and the bullet hits his mechanical arm, and damn, that bullet sure packed a punch. Tetsuo's mechanical arm begins to look grotesque with a combination of mechanical parts and flesh. Those animators must have had strong stomachs because this film has horrific imagery, and what you just saw is peanuts compared to what is about to be shown in a few minutes. Kaneda arrives to stop Tetsuo, and they of course have their round two. Takashi then arrives at the Olympic Stadium, and so do Kyoko and Masaru. As Tetsuo has his sights on them, Kaneda takes advantage of Tetsuo being distracted by the espers and fires at him. What happens next is the most horrific moment in Akira, as Tetsuo's entire body begins to mutate. When I first saw this scene, I was in awe, but I was also in shock. In repeated viewings, I still look at this scene with awe. And even though I've already experienced the horrors in this moment of AKIRA, not only does it still send shivers down my spine and skin, it still sends shivers to my core. Even after a little over 30 years since the release of this film, this moment right here still holds up amongst everything else presented in AKIRA. Also, poor Kaori, she did not deserve to go out the way she did here. As Tetsuo's mutation becomes out of control, Takashi, Kyoko, and Masaru kneel and pray in front of Akira's remains. Tetsuo's mutation attempts to kill the three espers, and then the canisters containing Akira's remains break, and a light appears. We then see that Akira has awakened. Colonel Shikishima is about to be engulfed in the light, and Kyoko transports him to the entrance of a tunnel as Kyoko tells him he'll be safe once he goes into the tunnel. The light of Akira begins to engulf Tetsuo.
Tetsuo!
Gotta have that name yelling. Even though this does sound like an anime cliche, in the case of Akira, I'm perfectly fine with it. Kaneda tries to get Tetsuo back, and Tetsuo's mass grabs Kaneda, and they both get engulfed in Akira's light. Takashi tries to free Kaneda, but Kyoko and Masaru warn that he may end up getting trapped along with Kaneda. Takashi goes into Akira's light, and Kyoko and Masaru think that if they work with Takashi, they could save Kaneda at the sacrifice of being trapped into Akira's light. As Kaneda floats within Akira's light, he begins to see Tetsuo's past as well as the past of the three espers. When I saw this scene in my first viewing as well as revisits of the film, I did not pick up that some of the children that were shown were in fact Takashi, Kyoko, and Masaru. I suppose the reason why I overlooked that detail was because I was already blown away by the visuals. And I guess I should have paid attention when I was visiting this scene numerous times. Yeah, I know. Dumbass moment of mine. And this kept repeating until I finally realized how important this scene truly was in this brief backstory of the origin of Akira. Now I clearly see who Takashi, Kyoko, and Masaru looked like before they became espers. They looked like normal human beings. The three espers tell Kaneda that they called to Akira to take Tetsuo away, as it is too much and it is too big for them, Tetsuo, and Akira. Kaneda also experiences another memory of Tetsuo's childhood, where he and Kaneda become friends. Kaneda returns to the world thanks to the espers. He hears Kei calling his name only to witness... Dr. Onishi analyzes Akira's awakening as if it is the birth of a new universe, and he ends up getting killed as we witness the destruction of Neo-Tokyo. Well, the 2020 Olympics in Neo-Tokyo are not happening. In reality, the Olympics were supposed to be held in Tokyo in the year 2020, but they aren't happening either. Akira sure aged well. A tiny orb of light floats down to Kaneda as he takes the tiny orb of light into his hands, and we see him absorb it. Kei and Kai regroup with Kaneda in the ruins of Neo-Tokyo. We also see Colonel Shikishima walk out of the tunnel, so we see that he survived Neo-Tokyo's destruction. We then see Kaneda, Kei, and Kai ride off into the new day to a bright sky. Now we get to the final seconds of Akira, which may be vague at first glance.
I am Tetsuo.
I do have an explanation based on what I researched about this final moment in Akira. Tetsuo is introducing himself to a plane of existence. And if that still sounds vague, I do have an interpretation on this very final moment. And my interpretation is that Tetsuo has become a godlike being, and he's introducing himself to a new universe. And you want to know why I'm going with that interpretation? It's because of the divine-like powers of Akira. And seeing as Neo Tokyo is destroyed, I think it is as if it is the second coming of Akira. I also want to factor in the final line of dialogue, which is, and I quote, "I am Tetsuo." And I greatly want to emphasize the words "I am." You see, in the Bible, God declares his existence with the words "I am." Now that I've addressed that, I'm really sticking to this interpretation that Tetsuo became a godlike being at the end of the film Akira. I do wonder one thing after the film is said and done. Should Neo Tokyo be rebuilt, which I imagine it would, do you think it should be renamed Tokyo 3? What's that? Neon Genesis Evangelion already used that name? Well, fuck me. I have spoken a lot about this film, and I'm sure it was a lot to take in. But given the status of Akira and how iconic it is as an anime film, I think it deserved an in-depth treatment out of me. For a film a little over 30 years old at the time that this review is released, the animation in Akira is fucking-credible! Even if you have any criticisms of the film, there is no denying the animation is the film's strongest element. No anime film has been as intricate with fluid animation before and since the release of Akira. In the field of animation, Akira is lightning in a bottle. It is such an incredible feat of animation drawn by human hands, with the exception of a few uses of CGI. There's also the attention to detail of matching lip movements to the dialogue of the film, which is the one reason why I do prefer Akira in its original Japanese version, with English subtitles, of course. I have no problem watching Akira dubbed. I greatly enjoyed the redub of the film, and I also enjoy the original English dub, for an entirely different reason.
That pea-brain? Yeah. Don't make me laugh. Maybe when you downed your first clown. What are you waiting for? Nice catch! Huh? Who are you? Hey! Tetsuo!
No, it's the clowns.
Enough! They can't do this! Hey, we were worried about you.
I wish you'd just go away and leave me alone.
What? You think I'm a loser? It's not my fault I was smaller! Well, there'll come a day when I'll show all of you!
Instead of rebuilding the city, he made us spend our whole surplus on that Olympic monstrosity.
Did he really think the Olympic Games would gratify the people? Doesn't he remember that the Roman emperors tried the same ploy?
I've told you 1,000 times we should have spent that money on a freeway system.
Shut up, old fool!
What did he say?
We have every indication that AKIRA is about to manifest itself. If we don't take control of that power now, we might lose everything as
Who do you think you're kidding here, Colonel? We're not fools.
There you go again, old man, trying to put your head in the sand!
Once and for all, we still have no evidence Akira had anything to do with the Great War.
It's very clear now. We're going to have to suffer through another disaster till you're convinced. If you don't open your eyes, we're all finished.
Come now, Colonel. Aren't you being a bit dramatic?
You can't get away with that! You're animals! I'll get you if it's the last thing I do! These are my friends! Leave them alone! Hey!
Oh, Devlin! You fool! You traitor!
Now you're king of the mountain, aren't you? But it's all garbage!
Kaneda!
Okay, let's settle this once and for all!
I know there are fans of the original English dub of AKIRA, which I figure is from the fans of AKIRA who saw the film dubbed early and throughout the 90s. Having experienced AKIRA with the original English dub at last, I can't say I am with anyone that prefers the original English dub over the redub of AKIRA. I think the original English dub of AKIRA is laughable. It's not a good dub at all, but I can enjoy laughing at it for 2 hours. It was interesting to hear Cam Clark as Kaneda.
Kaneda!
Well, excuse me. It was interesting to hear Cam Clark as Kaneda. Yeah, this dub has some different pronunciations to character names compared to how their names are pronounced in the original Japanese version. The original English dub of AKIRA also contains a few Americanized names. While Kei's pronunciation is the same, her name is spelled differently in this streamlined release. There's also Ryu, who is named Roy in the original English dub of AKIRA. I am glad that I experienced this version last, after experiencing the original Japanese version and the redub of AKIRA, because the original English dub is quite a unique experience compared to the others. It's not the worst dub I have heard in my life. I would watch it over the original English dub of The Vision of Escaflowne. As I said before, I can enjoy the original English dub of AKIRA just to get some laughs. The redub is what I find to be the better dub of AKIRA. I'm gonna start with Johnny Yambosh as Kaneda. I only have 3 words to describe Johnny Yambosh's performance as Kaneda, and those 3 words are...
If you want it so bad, then steal one yourself.
Perfect fucking casting! I can't think of anyone else that would voice Kaneda. It is as if Johnny Yambosh was born to play the role of Kaneda. And this is easily one of my favorite performances from Johnny Yambosh. Tetsuo is voiced by Joshua Seth, who retired from voice acting, although he has been reprising his role as Tai in the Digimon Adventure Tri-film series. He may be best known for his performances in the Digimon franchise, but Tetsuo is another role that I do think stood out. Kei is voiced by the wonderful Wendy Lee, who I especially remember voicing Faye Valentine in Cowboy Bebop. And it was great to hear Wendy Lee in AKIRA's redub. Jameson Price voices Colonel Shikishima, and easily the manliest voice in the redub of AKIRA. Another perfect casting choice. The last cast member of the redub I do want to cover is the late Michael Lindsay as Yamagata. I remembered him as Kankuro in the anime series Naruto and Kisuke Urahara in Bleach. I really liked Michael Lindsay as Yamagata, and I was really bummed out to hear the news that he passed away back in August of 2019. The original Japanese cast does have some worthy cast members. While I am not familiar with Mitsuo Iwata's body of work since the release of AKIRA, his performance as Kaneda is by far a standout in his career. I am familiar with some of Nozomu Sasaki's work in anime like Yu Yu Hakusho, Monster, Death Note, and of course, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. He voices Tetsuo in AKIRA, and this is clearly the performance he is best known for, and it's one of my favorite roles by Nozomu Sasaki. Mami Koyama voices Kei, and she is known for her roles in anime like Saint Seiya and Dr. Slump. I remember her best as Kei in AKIRA, and I also remember her performance in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Oh, she was also in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood for 1 episode! Yay! The last cast member I want to cover is Takashi Kusao as Kai, and I discovered that Kai was his debut role. And he also would later voice the character Trunks in Dragon Ball Z. Nice, I guess. As for his debut role as Kai in AKIRA, he was fine. I got nothing more on the guy. The music score for AKIRA is quite distinct in the medium of anime, and it's easily one of the best anime film scores out there. I also love how it complements the themes of AKIRA with the energy of instrumentation, spiritual feel, and some digital means when producing the music of Katsuhiro Otomo's iconic anime film. There is one thing that has been nagging on my mind when it comes to the music score of AKIRA. Am I the only one that's thinking that the song Battle with the Clowns sounds like a bloated jackass crying out for butter or hot dogs? I do like the characters a great deal. Kaeda's a very likable punk. Kei is cool. Yamagata and Kai are fine supporting characters. Colonel Shikishima, as I've already said, is a badass. And I find the Espers fascinating. There is not a single character I don't like in AKIRA. As for the film's plot, it's pretty simple to follow, but there are certain plot points that are quite complex that will require some revisits to catch on to. Given how amazing the animation is in AKIRA, there really should be no complaint in revisiting this film from time to time. Hell, I've seen this film a good number of times, and I still love it. But, as much as I love AKIRA, there is one thing that I cannot deny. The manga of the same name is far superior. This goes without saying. With Katsuhiro Otomo's manga masterpiece consisting of over 2,000 pages throughout 6 volumes, the manga has the advantage of fleshing out characters and plot. And clearly, cramming the manga's plot into a 2-hour film was not an option. So, Katsuhiro Otomo had to come up with alternatives to make the plot fit in the anime film adaptation of AKIRA. While I do acknowledge that the AKIRA manga is superior, that does not change my appreciation towards the AKIRA film. To this very day, AKIRA is now revered as one of the greatest animated films ever made. It became a big hit in Japan, but when it reached the West, anime exploded, especially in America. AKIRA is a landmark anime production for its incredible feats in animation. Anime may be popular in the West today, but AKIRA got people becoming aware of anime as an artistic medium, especially people who reside in the United States. This film was also an inspiration to manga artists and animators. It also influenced video game developers and even filmmakers. And the AKIRA film was even a source of influence in television, comics, and even music. The amount of reach that this film has in pop culture is a testament to the power that AKIRA possesses after it exploded on that fateful day on July 16th, 1988. At the end of the day, AKIRA remains one of the greatest anime films of all time. It also displays some of the greatest animation you will ever see in the medium of anime. Even though Katsuhiro Otomo had to make the film essentially an alternate version of the story he was writing in the manga of the same name, I am 100% behind the changes he had to make in order for the film's plot to work. After all, he is the creator of AKIRA, which originated as a manga, and he is the director of the anime film adaptation. I can at least commend him for being honest with the intent of the anime film adaptation of AKIRA by making it a visual work. The manga is far superior, but the film has a legacy of its own by being a pop culture phenomenon. These circumstances are enough for me to make this declaration. I'm going to be shooting a 10 out of 10 for AKIRA. And that is my review of AKIRA, the anime film adaptation of Katsuhiro Otomo's manga of the same name, of course. And to this very day, after numerous revisits, I still love this film like mad, especially being greatly impressed when I first saw it. And you know what? Even though the manga is far superior and does have fleshed out characters and plot, there is more to love with Katsuhiro Otomo's work on AKIRA with the AKIRA film. I can still appreciate AKIRA in both the manga and anime film. At the time I'm releasing this review, AKIRA did get a 4K restoration, and earlier this year, AKIRA got a 4K home video release in Japan. And it's only a matter of time until the West gets a 4K release of AKIRA. And I would be happy to pick that son of a bitch up and upgrade from this to 4K. And lastly, I want to talk about one thing that I am excited for as I close out this review. And no, I'm not talking about Taika Waititi's live-action AKIRA adaptation, and what are the chances that is going to suck balls? No, what I'm excited for is the anime series adaptation of AKIRA. Yes, it is happening! So, we may actually get a faithful anime adaptation of AKIRA! Now, that is something I am very much looking forward to. Sunrise is going to be the studio behind it, and Katsuhiro Otomo himself is going to supervise the series adaptation. Now, I have something to look forward to! Now, if Taika Waititi's AKIRA film ever does come out, I'll review it whenever I can, because why not? But if it never comes out, because of development hell or other production issues, I'd be fine with that. 100%. Now, when the AKIRA anime series adaptation does get a release, whether it's a season of it or the whole entire adaptation at once, I will review that as soon as possible, and I guarantee it. But we will all have to wait. But until that day, I will look forward to it. I'll be reloading for my next review, so until then, see you later.
This chapter's finished.
Very well. Let's get out of here.